Today on Locked On Red Wings, Husso is yanked as Red Wings are pummeled in their home opener loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, and I am a color commentator for the Oakland University Golden Grizzlies hockey team. And Scotty, I'm going to make you proud. I'm going to actually make you proud on this very, what's the word I'm looking for? Dreary Friday morning, Friday afternoon, whatever time people are listening to us, with both the Wings and the Tigers losing in downtown Detroit, like an hour and a half apart. I'm going to make you proud by saying this to lead off the show. There are 81 more games left to be played in this season.
Very proud of you.
That being said, that was a wet fart of a hockey game.
It was awful.
That was a really, really, really bad hockey game. And before I can talk to you guys about it, I got to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. Yeah, Scotty, I mean, there's so much we got to get to with this hockey game. Obviously, losing 6-3 in your home opener is less than ideal, especially when they came out of the gate so hot, out to a quick 1-0 lead. They looked like, Pittsburgh looked like a team that played the night before, and because they were, and you looked like you're taking full advantage of that. And then how quickly it unraveled. And I guess we're going to start where we always start when we talk about these hockey games. What was your difference maker in this one?
Yeah, so I think there's two pretty clear ones. We'll see if that ends up being the two that we discuss. But I am going to take the defense as a whole, if that's allowed. I don't know if, it's not one specific player. I'm sure Ville Husso will be somebody that's talked about as a pretty big difference maker in this game. So if you want to take the reins on him, I think I'm just going to go with the defense as a whole. This was an atrocity of a defensive performance by this hockey team. This was abysmal. I cannot overstate how brutal this game was defensively. And we talked a lot over the summer about how this blue line is a lot shakier than I think some people are giving it credit's not the right word, but giving the attention to, right? Like this is very far from a guaranteed, success of a blue line. And it reared its ugly head in this one, man. This was and the forwards are a part of that too, as we talked about a lot last season. That's not me saying that only the defensemen are responsible for the team's defense, but everybody, man. This was a really, really, really poor defensive effort. Not only that, but just straight up clearing the puck seemed like the most impossible task on the planet. The third goal against, maybe fourth, who even knows. One of the goals against was literally the Wings had the puck in their own zone. Two skaters back there. There's a forecheck there by the Wings, or by the Penguins rather. They go after who I don't even remember who the puck handler was. He just does a dump off behind him to get it to the trail skater, completely whiffs on it. Penguins get it, and that's the one that bounced off Ben Sherratt. Like it was an impossible task to clear the puck. It was an impossible task to stay on the puck when it was in their own zone. And for as much as I'm sure we, as well as the rest of the fan base, are probably about to rip into Ville Husso, this was also a tag team effort. This was a disgusting performance by the defense. And it's disappointing that all preseason we were like, oh, they looked terrible, but it's preseason, so we'll wait. And then we waited, and they looked terrible.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I was going to go. It's like all preseason we were saying, well, it's just preseason, so like it's not really that big a deal that they looked so bad and disjointed. And then comes the first game of the season against a team on the second half of a back-to-back, a team that we spent 10 minutes about yesterday talking about how they're not that good, and they come into your barn and they burn it down. Like, it's just absolutely asinine the way we talk. And you mentioned it, like, obviously the forwards are a big part of the defense too. And if I had to go and look back and, dissect each and every goal, I'm sure I could find a way to be like, okay, here's how the forwards didn't help the defense. But on first blush, just going based on what I saw in those replays, it was mostly the actual defensemen in this game that were getting walked. Again, I'm sure the forwards didn't help to put those defensemen in the best position to make plays. But example, you mentioned the Ben Sherratt one that went off him, right? In the corner, he gets danced by Sidney Crosby, which, in Ben Sherratt's defense, a lot of people get danced by Sidney Crosby. But he gets danced by Sidney Crosby, and then throws the puck to Beauvillier out front. Husso just lays out flat to try and make a save, and he's trying to make a save. I don't blame that on him. Beauvillier gets the puck again, throws it back to the front. Now Ben Sherratt is just there, and it goes off him and into the net. Second goal scored again by Anthony Beauvillier. It's this more of the same thing. This time I give a little bit of, I actually do blame Husso a little bit, because that was a really bad rebound he gave up on Beauvillier's second goal, where he just kicked it right to Beauvillier.
He had a couple really bad rebounds.
It was another instance where, they couldn't get the puck out. They got hemmed in, and Husso wasn't tracking the puck well, saw it last second, kicked it out right out front for a rebound, and it was a goal. Drew O'Connor's goal, it's just... You go down the list, and every single one of these goals, I think Drew O'Connor's goal, was that the one where you had Mata and Gustafsson tracking the same defender to the same attacking forward to the right side, leaving the weak man to stretch down wide open? Was that goal? It was time and time again. It was either a defensive breakdown or the inability to track the puck. Right. Oh, yeah.
Screen that just got through.
See, that wasn't even a screen, because Ville
that's why That's why I'm in quotes here. That was a complete whiff. Yeah.
For people who are listening and watching, he air quoted. No, and that's my difference maker, right? Because you did the defense. I came into this episode knowing that the two difference makers in my head were team defense and goaltending, which, goddamn, is it so annoying that we are in game one of a fresh season and we are complaining about the same problems that plagued this team last year. Again, it is game 1 of 82, but I was hoping for little indications that maybe we were trending in the right direction, and it was a complete breakdown from everyone on the defensive side of the puck. And then Ville Husso, who we hyped up yesterday in his first game back after not playing all of last year, after having a really great preseason, saying how happy we were for him to get this opportunity and that he still has the potential of being a good goalie. Just, he wasn't tracking the puck well. And again, there were defensive breakdowns in front of him. Not every goal was his fault, but that fourth goal in particular that went right through his glove, that's the patented soft glove side. It's always glove side goal that Ville Husso lets in. And we were hyping him up so much yesterday because we were rooting for this guy, but it was just defensively a disaster in game 1 of the season, and it was a slap to the face of Detroit fans everywhere who had witnessed the Tigers lose 20 minutes before that.
Yeah, I think one of the things I said yesterday was they're playing Husso early in the season because they want to know what they have in him.
I think they found out.
Tough start to that. Yeah, really tough start to that if this is going to be the answer to that question. Now, this won't be the last game he ever plays as a wing. They'll give him other opportunities and whatnot, and we'll see what happens. But golly, man, that was really, really rough.
Well, and also, you have a defensive-minded head coach in theory, yet your defense, time and time again, is the thing that fails you. And that's a damning indictment of your head coach. I'm sorry. And again, okay, it is game 1 of 82. I'm not pressing the panic button on the season yet, but you just laid an absolute egg in front of your home crowd to start the season after just barely missing. And the reason you just barely missed is because you had one of the worst defensive metrics in the league last year and you were outscoring your problems. So it's I was just hoping for an indication that something would be better in game 1. Of course, You know who laid an egg in their first game? Pittsburgh.
The Pittsburgh.
And they came out and they smashed the Red Wings in their second game. So, like, there's a ton of time left to fix this. It was just really, it was a downer, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think it was a downer. Like, that really is the way to describe it. It's just like the things that when we were going into, you know, the end of the summer and kind of going into the preseason, like it's the stuff that we talked, or even back in the spring, the stuff that we like, oh, like, you know, they should address this offseason. They should address this offseason. And whether they did or didn't, like that was still the things that did not go well in this game lined up with that, right? Like we talked about the blue line and how, like, we're not really sure this is going to be a great blue line, and the blue line looked awful. And then, like, the goalie situation, huge question marks there. That was brutal. Like it's just that's the downer of it all, is just, I don't know, predictable.
Right. And in segment 2, we'll talk about notable performances from this game. And that doesn't mean notable as in a good way. It can be notable in a bad way. We'll talk about that in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Misclicked. Got to talk to you guys today about Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Indeed you do.
Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, notable performers. I mean, I have a lot of people on my list that I want to talk about, people who we've kind of already mentioned, but I just want to talk about further in segment 2 here. But I want to throw it to you first. Who do you have as a notable performer?
Let's pick the vibes up a little bit. I'm gonna go with Cat, who had a phenomenal game. I said that weird, so I'm gonna caught in my throat there. Cat. We're gonna go with Cat. He had a really good game though. This was 3 points, obviously 2 goals, 5 shots on net as well. Now, obviously, that top line was out there for a lot of goals against, but Pittsburgh is a pretty top-heavy team. So, again, team defense is something that everybody, I think, struggled with, and I think you can point to Cat on a few instances in regards to that. But you know, this was a really good offensive showing, and it's a double-edged sword, because it's a good thing, obviously, that he is scoring early, right? That's great. That's something that we identified him as like a really kind of not talked about and under the radar X factor for this team, just because if he can score goals like the Wings paid him to do, the entire outlook of this team kind of changes, right? Like he's such a big, maybe the biggest X factor on offense. But the thing that not like is a bad thing, but just the thing that's keeping me reserved about it still is he got off to a flaming start last year too, and then fizzled out. So like it's great that you know, 1 game in, he's out there, he's producing again. 3 points, obviously you'll take every day of the week and twice on Sunday, but you know, something that we need to see. Obviously he's not going to get 3 points every game, but something that that we need to see a little bit more, you know, further out. But for a first game, we only know what we know. We only have a 1-game sample, and he was great offensively.
Yeah, I mean, this is a segment we could do for like 20 minutes. I have so much to say. Agreed with the DeBrincat thing. Just going to the right spots at the right time. We knew that top line was going to be good offensively. It was kind of a glass cannon type thing with that top line in this game. They were out there when they were all out there together. They played 12 minutes and 30 seconds at 5-on-5 together. So this is when they're all on the ice together. They played 12 minutes and 30 seconds of ice time. They had a Corsi for percentage of 55, but an expected goals for percentage of 36.85. So like they had the best Corsi for percentage as a line, but the worst expected goals for percentage in terms of quality shot attempts. That pass from Raymond on that goal was beautiful. It was a great way to start things off. They were dominating in the first period, and I talked about that a little bit in the segment one, but like in the first period, the Penguins looked tired. Like they had just played in a different city the night before and got shelled, and you were dancing around them. And that brings me to my first notable performer and for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that's their goaltender Blomquist, who got his first career NHL win. Where the Red Wings were struggling defensively, they weren't getting bailed out by their goaltender. The Pittsburgh Penguins were. Blomquist was really good for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Red Wings could have been up by 2 or 3 by the end of the first period with some of the wide open looks that the Red Wings had, but he was just getting over and making some highway robbery saves on the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings in the first period, Scotty, walked away with a 13-7 edge in shots, and at 5-on-5, their Corsi for percentage was 55%. Their expected goals for percentage was at 50.6%. So they were the better team, and a lot of that evening out that happened in that period came on the second half of the first period when the Red Wings started to get cozy because the offense was coming very easy to them in the first period. It was like that game they blew against the Ottawa Senators in the preseason. They got cozy because they were playing super well. The other team wasn't pushing back. Well, eventually they found their legs and pushed back, and the Red Wings couldn't adjust.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I want to give him credit too. I think, man, like it's just such a momentum sport that, you know, when the wheels fell off, man, they
Right.
fell off. Like
Right.
This was, as you've mentioned a couple of times now, you know, the Wings were the better team in the first period and looked really good, and just when it rains it pours, man. And when the ice got tilted a little bit in Pittsburgh's favor, it ended up getting tilted a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another notable performer I think we got to talk about, Edvinsson had a really poor game. Like not the type of game you want to see from a highly touted, and this is going to be an air quotes rookie because he's not technically a rookie, but he's a rookie and for all purposes he basically is. He had one really nice play in the first period. That's the thing. It was like spurts of nice plays, and then everything else was like not great to see. He was getting danced in the defensive zone a couple times, as well as taking a really bad penalty when you were down by 2 goals in the third period. Like DeBrincat took a weird hit. I don't think it was a dirty hit. He just kind of fell awkward. So Edvinsson went up and cross-checked the guy, drew a penalty, and Erik Karlsson then scored to then again make it a 3-goal lead, 5-2, when the Red Wings had made it a 2-goal deficit at the end of the second. So he just had just a very sloppy game, and that's something we've seen out of Edvinsson. Like he was always good for 1 or 2 because he's a young player, right? He's a really, really talented player, but he just struggles with consistency. And when he has bad games, it stands out.
Yeah, and that is the giveth and taketh of him being on a pair with Jeff Petrie. Like I didn't think Petrie was particularly like horrible in this game or anything, but like we've talked about that a lot, right? Like the top 4 of this defense is going to pretty much, I'm not trying to put the weight of the world on the kid, but like it's going to be heavily decided by how good Edvinsson is. And like when he has bad games, you're talking about a top 4 that has Ben Sherratt, Jeff Petrie, and then a very, very young quote unquote rookie. And obviously you have Mo, and he's the big money guy, and he's the equalizer, and is going to be, you know, one of the best players on the team. But you know, when Edvinsson on nights where Edvinsson's not great, that's a really bleak top 4, man.
Yeah, and you can't even, like, Petrie didn't play great in the 8 minutes he did play in this game because obviously he left with an injury and did not return. So then the pairs got shuffled, and one of the plays where he looked really overly exposed was that final goal that the Pittsburgh Penguins scored, the Hayes goal on Cam Talbot, where he and Gustafsson were out there together, which is like a pair. You don't want your rookie out there with the offense-only defenseman in the defensive zone, and they looked like a pair that had never played together, who played differing styles, who got stuck and hemmed in, and they got they just he whiffed on passes. It was, I don't want to bag too much on him because he's a young kid. He's going to be inconsistent, but he just particularly had a bad game. And to that point, so did Gustafsson. Gustafsson was, I mean, I'm probably just going to list off every individual defenseman. And I hate to rag on just the defenseman because the forwards were bad too. Like we could spend all of segment 3 on the forward core if you want, Scotty. But Gustafsson looked really out of sorts too. Like he just did not have chemistry.
Game,
dude.
Man.
It was rough.
He had a really, really rough game. And as we talked about, like it wasn't like this dude was getting deployed in the defensive zone over and over again either. Like he that was not a great start to his Red Wings tenure for sure.
Nope, absolutely not. We'll head to segment 3 here. When we return, we'll just finish up. I mean, I got so much more I got to say about this game. And they play on Saturday against the Nashville Predators. So stay tuned for that. Segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. Hey, hit the right button this time.
Good for you, man.
Thanks. Got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Segment 3. It's a short one, buddy. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings
No. Like
podcast.
I clicked just above it. Like I literally missed the button.
Oh, that's what I did earlier when I accidentally put the outro for half a second. I clicked the button above it. Yeah, we're even. We both messed up today. Not as messed up as that score in that Red Wings game. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. You like that, Scotty?
Bang, bang. That was pro.
Bang, bang.
Pro.
There we go. Dude, sheesh. Offense, second line, Comfer, Kane, Tarasenko. Probably, I'm going to say it, I think that was probably the worst line of the night. People are not going to like that because it's got Tarasenko and Kane on it. And Tarasenko did technically score a 5-on-5 goal, even though, for all intents and purposes, it was a power play goal because it was the second after. And congratulations to Tarasenko for scoring his first goal as a Red Wing. It was an absolute bullet. For a second, had me thinking the Red Wings were going to stage a comeback. For a second. Clearly, that deflated very fast. But, I mean, Comfer got absolutely killed in the face-off circle. Scotty, he went 2 for 14
in
the face-off circle.
Too.
I'm sorry. That was wrong. 2 for 12 in the face-off circle in tonight's game. You cannot lose 10 more face-offs than you win as a second-line center in the NHL. And then, of course, because of the fact that you have Tarasenko and Kane, they were getting bulk majority offensive zone deployments, and they weren't doing anything with them. I don't think any of those players necessarily stood out all that much. And as a line, Scotty, they were the worst line at Corsi for percentage at 5-on-5 with 26%, and they had an expected goals for percentage of 13.95. They were the only line this is only counting when all three are on the ice at once together, but they're the only forward line with a negative expected goals for percentage relative. They were a negative expected goals for relative of negative 25.89%. They were brutal in this hockey game, which was something that we noted as a little bit of a concern with this line. You have two aging veteran forwards who aren't the most fleet of foot that can provide a huge offensive upside, but historically we're not good defensively. We were hoping JT Compher up the middle could help, curb some of that the defensive warts of that line, but it was not a great line today. The chemistry is still definitely a work in progress with a lot of different areas of this team, and I don't want to. We're frustrated because it was an ugly game. And we didn't get those positive indications we were hoping for after what we saw as flaws last season. But at the same time, there's a lot of hockey left to be played. How many teams got crushed last night that came back to win tonight? Or I guess to say 2 nights ago to win last night.
Yeah.
Again, Penguins lost 6-0, won 6-3 the next night.
Yeah. I don't know. It's one game. It's a long season. The Leafs and the Oilers got shut out in their first games. Like, are they going to be terrible? Like, no, it's not a reflection of the whole thing. It's just, it's deflating, kind of like what I alluded to earlier. Like, it's deflating because of the areas in the game specifically that they struggled, right? It was just very we've been talking about this all summer, and that's been kind of the frustrating part. Comfort, like you mentioned, awful in the faceoff circle, and everybody else did well, which I think really highlighted it. Dylan Larkin over 50% in the circle, Veleno well over 50%, Andrew Kopp over 50%. So like JT Comfort just got his teeth kicked in, and everybody else that was taking faceoffs for the Wings did really well. So it's a little bit highlighted more. I don't know. I also wonder if you are not going to play well defensively, what is the actual purpose of a shutdown line? Like, this is something that I brought up, I think, while you were on your honeymoon in the preseason. And it was like the shutdown line is great when it works. And it is. And I'm sure it will work at some point. And I'm sure I'll come on here and sing the praises of it when it is, a really effective line. It was not very in this game. But because you cannot rely on them to score offensively, like how are you going to play from behind when one of your lines is only purpose is defense, one of your other lines is just your fourth line? Like you're just putting a lot of pressure on your top six. I understand that's kind of how the team was built, and that's why they got Tarasenko and whatnot. But you're putting a ton of pressure for points on your top six, because if you don't, it's very hard to play from behind without a full lineup that you can rely on for offense, man. And like, it's when they give up goals, when that line goes out there and they're on the ice for goals against, their purpose is shot. It is completely gone because they're not going to score offensively. So it's a very fine line. I understand the purpose of it. I enjoy having a line that can play, really good defense, but in games like this, it is completely pointless. And I just wonder how long we're going to. And again, I'm not trying to say like, oh my goodness, they lost the first game, so break up all the lines and try again. Like again, they'll stick together. They'll have some good games, and we'll see the reason why they are effective and why it is good to have them too. It's just one of those things where it's just a really thin line between. It doesn't take much to make that line completely irrelevant. That's all.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say this as a little bit of a rebuttal to that, is that most teams rely on their top six to provide a lot of the offense.
Of course. I wasn't trying to say that, like, your third line should be like some incredible scoring unit. Obviously, your top six are your most talented offensive players. I'm just saying if you're down, like in this game, if you're down 3 goals in the second period, that's a lot of time to just be like, well, I don't know what situation we can throw the third or fourth line out there for. So, have fun the rest of the game.
I'll stand with you 100% on the fourth line. We've been saying it for weeks that, like, and again, it's the fourth line. They're going to get like 10 minutes a night, so it doesn't matter that much, but I would like if that line had a little bit more. It's weird to say I want my fourth line to have an identity. Like, it is. I understand that, but it's just a weird mishmash of like leftover players. So you have 3 lines that have clear identities and what their purpose is going to be, right? Your top line's your top line. They're supposed to be an all-purpose line. You're going to put them in offensive zone situations. You want them to be able to be decent in defensive zone situations. Clearly, your second line is going to be like full tilt offensive guys.
They better score.
Your third line very clearly going to play,
and they didn't give up goals,
right? And they're overall usually they're pretty good at it. No one was good in this game, so I'm not gonna try and say it's their fault by any stretch of the imagination.
All my point is like if they're not good defensively, they serve no purpose because they're not going to score. That's all I was trying to say.
Yeah. So I guess the final point that I have then, or final not point, but thing to bring up is Seider got the minutes that we've been begging for, and like he was getting quite a bit of offensive zone looks as well.
Yeah.
He did end up with an assist in this game. He got a nice assist on Tarasenko's goal as well. He was getting power play 2 minutes. He ended up with close to 27 minutes in this game. And again, part of that is because Petrie got hurt, so they are down a defenseman, so he was playing even more on top of that. But Seider was like the only defenseman, in my opinion, that looked like halfway decent in this game. Not that he didn't, again, nobody on the team really necessarily played good. There were moments, Seider got kind of bailed out on that goal that was reversed because of the hand pass. And that was the play that Petrie got hurt on, actually, because both he and Petrie were, for some reason, in the same corner. And they left O'Connor wide open in front of the net. So, like, nobody was perfect in this game, but I did think it was of note that that Moritz Seider, despite the defensive zone starts and playing all those minutes against Sidney Crosby, I think I looked it up too. How many minutes did Sidney Crosby and Moritz Seider play together? Yeah, Moritz Seider led the Red Wings in time against Sidney Crosby at 5-on-5 with 11 minutes, which is to be expected as the number one defenseman. Yet he still played 27 total minutes. He got power play 2 time. He got penalty kill time. Overall, I thought he was one of the best players on the ice, but still I wouldn't say had a good game. I don't think there's really anyone on this team I would say had a good game.
Yeah, maybe Cat. That's about it.
Yeah, but like even with Cat, like that second goal, he was just in the right spot. He was where he should have been. The first goal, like he was breaking down, like it's 2 moments, and they were great shots. They were great goals. He scored. That was great. But those were moments. I'm looking at the 60-minute picture.
Yeah. I'm not saying he was like clamps defensively or like that the rest, but like
He did have an assist
we
too. He
scored
did have a
3
3-point
goals and he had 3 points. So,
well, and that's the thing. Like if they win this game, like that's what we're talking about is Cat's 3-point night. Instead, it's going to be about Husso and the defense letting him down. Like that's what it's about. Scotty, the Red Wings play they don't play in Nashville. They play Nashville at LCA on Saturday. The same time again that the Tigers play, but that thankfully this time they're in Cleveland, playing with Skubal on the mound. But
Tigers are going to play at 8, I believe.
Oh, 8? Okay, so an hour later. I think
because
it was
it changed around a few different times because they're going to be the only game 5 because the Yankees won. So
gotcha.
So
we
slot.
actually. They're going to give 2 Midwest teams a primetime slot?
I know. It's literally because there's no other option for them. That is why.
That's crazy. All right, Scotty. Predators, real quickly, what do we got on them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is a team that had a really exciting offseason. They bring in Stammer. They are 0-1. They lost to the Stars on opening night at home. Look, the only silver lining with this is, besides the fact that, again, it's one game and it's something that we want to, for as down as we are, want to keep reiterating, is that this is one game and there's plenty of hockey left to be played here. But I think that for me, the biggest thing to look at is just that there are a lot of teams that got smacked around in their first game, as you alluded to earlier, right? They got smacked around in their first game and came back, and like the Penguins came back and looked a little bit better in their second. So yeah, this is a team that's excited about the season, that made a lot of kind of decently big, obviously highlighted by Stamkos, like I said, off-season moves, and is also looking for their first win. There's an argument they outplayed Dallas and in that game too, outshot them by dang near 20 and lost. So not going to be an easy thing, but we already talked about that on yesterday's show, how really all of October is going to be kind of difficult for the Wings. So it doesn't really matter. You got to play the team in front of you.
Absolutely. All right. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. We'll recap that game. Hey, at least we're back.
We are back. We are. It's kind of so over right now, but we are back. It's rough out here.
It's over in one sense, but back in another.
Yeah.
Go Tigers. Scotty, final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
Same time, same place, your team every day.